lovely day! Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this, my second channel, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with all the Flat Earth Debate pre-show and after-show goodness. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal and crypto link in the info box below this video. Now, we are joined by Ranty Flat Earth, who's got a bit of a demonstration. Hopefully he's going to give us get his attention. Hey Ranty, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yeah.
Woohoo! I'm going to see if I can get Anthony's attention as well. I've just tried to call him, but I can't. He's not watching, rather. But he's going to want to see this.
I would imagine he will. It's brilliant.
Well, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to want to see this, but it'd be nice for Anthony to actually be privy to it before we go live. How long did that composite take you?
Composite to put together properly, maybe an hour. Putting all the details together, different things, probably a couple of hours.
Keep missing out on all these images because I know you've sent it to me, but my iPad's in repair, so I'd normally save it to the iPad, and that's what I'd use to make all the videos. And while I can do that with the phone, it's not very easy. You know, it's small.
I've got a great. I'll send you a pretty ace one actually. Oh, why is it not saved on there? Oh, it's because I've moved it. That's why.
You want to stick it up so I can see how it looks? Yeah, composite you just made. I mean,
me just sent it into the Skype. So let me get the one. Yeah, that's the one. Right, hang on.
15 minutes and we're going live.
Okay. Yeah, what I've done.
Hold on. Grab my mouse. Gotcha.
Yeah, so what I've done is I've cropped out this version, and then I've increased the contrast. So if I go back an image, you can see that I've increased the contrast so it brings out the mountains a bit better. And then obviously what I've done is I've scaled it again, put the lines in where they meet the top, and I've scaled it again, and again it's down to what, 50 feet or so, 60 feet. Yeah, it's brilliant. How's that?
Looks awesome.
Do you want it a little to the left or the right or anything? Or?
I think we're good.
I mean, we don't need to concentrate on the lower stuff, because the good thing about this is we don't have, you know, when before it was the mountain. Oh, the mountains are in the, we don't know how much of the mountains we're seeing. Well, we've got the fucking wind turbines in the foreground. Do you know what I mean?
What you mean where the bulge should be?
Yes, where this 1,000-foot bulge should be between the 73.5 miles that are taller than this wind turbine in the foreground. So the bulge that would be enveloping these wind turbines, because essentially the bulge is halfway, isn't it?
Have you got the unaltered one, the one without any markings on it at all?
Oh yeah. Where are we? Go back. Right, well, I've sent you this one direct on Skype. Now, anyone can do this. Anyone can. The video's up.
What I want you to do is, now you've got that, is zoom in far left and then just slowly creep your way across it.
Okay.
Like you showed me earlier, basically, on Skype. Bit bigger. A little bit bigger. There we go. Bit bigger.
Bigger.
Yeah, bigger. There we go. I know. It's just because it's got a white line at the top. Don't worry. Maybe not so big. There we go. Perfect. And then now you can sort of scroll along it. You know what I mean? And you can see all of the Isle of Man.
And these turbines in the foreground are excellent because that's where the bulge should be. These turbines are a problem for the Globies.
It's all a problem. You shouldn't see the Isle of Man at nearly 80 miles. This is just bonkers.
Well, technically in their curve calcs, you should see some of it, but when you do the measurements and you know that you're seeing way more of the mountains than you should do, it's a big problem for them. And we've used Ordnance Survey for my elevation.
You don't need to worry about that argument anymore. You know, them saying that we should or should not see, what is it, 200 feet at the tops of these mountains, based on a side elevation view using whole numbers. So I've said a couple of 100 feet of the top of the mountain. No. We don't deal in a couple of 100 feet. That's nonsense. We're seeing a perspective view of these mountains. We're seeing a perspective view of everything. And the perspective isn't accounted for when you start talking about things in, you know, how much feet and inches you shouldn't see. You're seeing an angle to all of this stuff. A reduced angle, a significantly reduced angle. It's nearly 80 miles away.
Yeah. And I've put all the measurements in, but the problem being, it's like we've encountered recently with this stuff with Miles Davis and such, is that some of the mountains are further away and some of them are nearer. So even though that's their absolute height, you know, this one is nearer than this one, you know, so you can't just put a line across and go, well, 2037 matches to 1804 because there's a distance discrepancy, especially on their ball model.
Well, that's something I didn't realise till Adam pointed that out. So, I mean, I've laboured that point quite a lot. In other words, they're doing the maths, but they're saying, well, you tilted a bit further down to this mountain on the far left, and you tilted a bit less to the one in the foreground. It's like, well, no, the camera's angle is fixed to one position,
this is
but they change
the whole point. This is the whole point. If I put I guarantee you, if I put a line through every single one of these, they will match up in height-wise perfectly. So the highest mountain on this will be 2037. The next one will be 1854. The next one will be 1804. And it will be consistent just looking at it as a actual height. No, when you start putting the curve in, wait. When you start applying the curve, because this one is like 72 miles away, this one's like 75 miles away, it should be swapped around on the curve, you know. So this 1804 one should appear higher than the 1854. You know, all this kind of detail, it will be swapped around on a ball, but because it all matches up perfectly on a flat, as we look at it, the 1572 is higher than the 1417. 1594 is higher than the 1417. This wouldn't work on the ball.
I see what you're saying, but when you say that they'll scale almost perfectly with feet and inches measurements, well, yeah. No, because that's semi-true because they're all a similar distance from you. Do you know what I mean? It's not like you've got something.
But they're not curving.
No, but my point is that if you had something that was, say, 100 miles and something that was 70 miles, there's going to be an obvious difference between them in terms of their height, because one's further away. Now, in this case, you've got 75 and 77 and whatever else in this picture, miles distance from you, but it's all pretty much of a muchness within a couple of miles, right? The furthest mountain is maybe, what, 77 miles away?
Yeah.
And the closest one's 75, or is it 73? Let's say within 5 miles. So you're not going to get a massive amount of difference when you start comparing them in feet and inches. But ultimately speaking, Ranty, the feet and inches that you see isn't an accurate depiction of how you're seeing this. You know, to say that that's 1600 feet, you're having a laugh, right? It's 300 pixels. You know, it's meaningless to say that it's 300 feet. Because that's only relevant when you run a tape measure down it. You don't see things in those terms. You've got an angle to this at 75 miles. That's what you've got. So to say in actual terms it's 1600 feet, it's just the way they remove perspective.
Well, the two mountain ranges, as I say, that are essentially the same distance, 73.5, 73.4, we can use that. They're the only two that are any close to each other within half a mile or 3/4 of a mile.
You're way ahead of me, of course. So in other words, what you're saying is to limit... You're going to class the angle that this camera's at in there, begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking curve calculator, as being to these two mountains just arbitrarily because they're close enough for you to compare them without having to either reaccount for the maths and say, well, this is a more severe and this is a less severe angle to each of these mountains based on their distance. But because they're close enough within, 0.2 of a mile?
0.1 of a mile.
0.1 of a mile. So you've got nothing in it.
Yeah.
So therefore, the angle's irrelevant. You can just say, well, based on their proof of nothing begging the question, perspective hijacking curve calculator, and using perspective omitting whole numbers for things, then when you compare them in their world of begging the question and spheres, it's a total shit show. None of it works, even when you do all those things and, give them the best chance, you know what I mean? Fix the angle to 2 mountains, give them it in their whole numbers that exclude perspective. So, none of this makes any sense. But even when you do all that crap, it still doesn't work for them. Totally destroys their model.
The only thing you have to do in this particular case is just essentially knock off 190 feet. So if you put 190 feet difference by scaling it, so between these 2 yellow lines, which would be the top of that mountain and the top of this mountain, there's a 190 foot difference, same distance away. So if I scale 190 feet, which I've done here, put 190 feet in, then the ruler is scaled. So that's set at 1600 feet, that's set at 1411, and then wherever it ends up on the base is how far we're seeing down that mountain. So wherever it ends up on the base, and this is in feet, not meters, so we're down to essentially, 40 feet on the ruler by process of just being logical.
Yeah, but 40 feet missing in an area that's the most limited angle because it's the lowest towards the deck. So, yeah. It doesn't make any sense to quantify it in those terms. And I know why you are. I get it. You're saying, look, even in their stupid world of begging the question, it still doesn't bloody work. Look, so even if you want to, and it's for the people who don't accept a single word we say and say, no, the reification fallacy that is the globe model is real. And it does work. And then you come along with something like this, even for those people that don't accept that, you're skewing the numbers, ignoring perspective, they just stick their head in the sand. This is back to a year ago when we even did this. We begged the question and thought this was the correct way to assess things. And we're fighting against people who don't believe that it's the right way to assess. It is also the correct way to assess things, i.e. the globe heads, who still think that. So it's like a regression for 12 months, a 12-month regression to take those globe heads who just say, they just don't understand what they're doing when they say it doesn't, it needs perspective to be accounted for.
They need to be refreshed now and then, because let's be honest, we haven't addressed anything like this for the past 5 months, 6 months. So we've had a lot of new people that have joined the show, and probably a lot of people haven't actually been through this process. So to actually go back and start from scratch and essentially say, okay, well, let's be logical about this and let's just work out how much do you think we are actually seeing of this mountain. We can scale it because we have a hard horizon by virtue of seeing the bloody wind turbines in the foreground and the ocean underneath. It's on a video, and we can highlight all the stuff using GPS and maybe not GPS, but Ordnance Survey. And we can scale it. We can scale it, and we can say we're seeing under 100 feet. So how does that work when there should be 1,300 feet missing?
According to their begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking curve calculations, and the reification fallacy that is the globe model.
That's the one.
We're starting in about 60 seconds.
Okay.
Want to start with this on screen? Might as well leave it on. I'll just stick it on mine for, just for the intro.
Sure.
Just while I'm doing the intro, any chance you can just stick a Skype message to Anthony?
Yeah.
I haven't got time to do it. I'm literally going to stick you on mute now and start the show.
Time to get on.
Yeah, time to get his ass in gear. I have sent him a message, but he might not realise. Starting early.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and there's also a PayPal and crypto link in the info box below this video. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Now, we are joined by Ranty Flat Earth. How are you doing, Ranty?
I'm doing good, thank you very much.
Now, we're
However,
slightly privileged to have you, because I know I've sort of talked you into coming on because you were going to head out and do a few more observations, having just whet my appetite with the most juicy thing ever, and then said you were heading out. So I'm going to start early anyway. I didn't know if you realised, but you're here and you've got something very juicy to show us. So can you share this with...
I do, but you're going to have to just chill out just for a minute, because Google Hangouts is not responding and Google Chrome is not responding. So I don't even know how I'm actually speaking to you right now, because I've got a whirly screen going around. So there's nothing I can do about this technical hitch right now.
Oh, right. Well, we'll chat amongst ourselves till your computer crashes then, shall we?
Yeah, if it crashes, then I'll just reload and shoot straight back up again.
So
right,
tell us where you've been then. So where's the location that you've been heading off to get some glorious images from?
It's a place called Nicky Nook, and it's near Scorton, near Preston. And essentially it's almost 700 foot tall, and we can see a very, very long way. See the Isle of Man and all sorts.
Okay, so for all the globehead religious zealotards who'll want the whole numbers to misrepresent our world and exclude perspective, how high up are you?
207 meters.
So the top of the hill is about 214 meters, and you're a little way down, basically. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Okay. Yeah.
And you're looking across. What's the waterway that you're looking across?
The Irish Sea.
Okay. And what you've got in the mid-ground is some wind turbines, and what you've got in the background is...
the Isle of Man.
Okay, and what are your distances that you're seeing the Isle of Man?
Well, there's a few different elevation distances, simply because the mountains are further away and nearer. So anywhere from 71 miles up to 77 miles.
So we're knocking on the door of 80 miles observation of the Isle of Man.
Indeed.
Unbelievable. And you've basically spent the last couple of hours compositing this together. Well, last hour, and then talking to me for an hour, but, you know, basically stitching together the imagery that you've got as you've rotated your camera freehand from this hill to look at the Isle of Man, and then stitch it together. We just can't show it at the moment, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. The computer seems to still be frozen, so... give me 5 minutes. If I have to reload, I'll reload. And
okay, you reload. You've only got like half a dozen or a couple of dozen people watching anyway, because it started early. Right. So okay, I'll fill while you restart.
They can hang on. Just let me sort this out.
No worries. You restart, and I'll chat away to the chat feed of the limited audience that we currently have while you drop and restart. So hopefully we'll see Ranty back in a few short moments. But yeah, as we were discussing, Ranty's presented me a composite image, i.e. a stitched together series of stills from a video that he's taken from the top of this hill. And he presented the video footage to us yesterday, and at the time the more impressive shots were actually not the close-up zoomed in pictures, it was the panorama when he's zoomed out and then taken the sort of the expanse of what you can see. Admittedly with the Isle of Man as well, but then when he's gone in and actually taken taken advantage of his 4K camera and his nice zoom that he's got on the P1000, he's then stitched together that in the same way as was done maybe 8 or 9, maybe longer months ago when Anthony did a similar thing with the with the Isle of Man from St. Bees. So I think we've got Ranty back now. Are you with us?
I am. I'm back.
Okay, so I'm going to stick your screen on for the audience and make it nice and large.
Okie dokie then.
I'm going to pop myself on mute.
You'll notice that yesterday I uploaded a video saying that I think the title of it was something along the lines of meeting a flat earther at the top of Nicky Nook and the Isle of Man. And essentially, both were great, meeting a flat earther up there, who would have thought, but also the fact that we saw the Isle of Man. Now, what's impressive about this is... Hello? Oh, I've got a bit of an echo now.
Yeah, but I was on mute, so it definitely weren't me. Don't worry about it. It's just your computer kicking in with various things, I assume.
Well, what was really good about this was that we were able to see the Isle of Man pretty clearly in the video. And when you enhance the contrast and the colour, you can bring out the individual mountain ranges. So this is a composite that I've stuck together, and anybody can do the same. The video's up. I think it's in 4K, so you should have no problems in getting the detail. Next, what I decided to do, I have put the heights of these mountains in so that you can actually see them. For instance, we've got Snaefell, which is 2,037 feet in height. And you can see, where are we? There we go, 2,037 feet in height. And you can actually clearly make out the top of the mountain, which is just here. So there's all these different mountain ranges with the relevant heights put in. For instance, when I went to Peak Finder, I was able to match up everything pretty well. So if we come down to the bottom here, we have North Barule, and you can see this matches up perfectly, North Barule. And then we've got Plague Ewer, which is at 1,804 feet. Snaefell, which is 2,037. And obviously, you can see all these different heights, distances, etc. Well, the problem that we have is that all these mountains are a different distance. So, for instance, if I wanted to try and measure the height of Snaefell versus the height of Mullaghua, which is here, there would be a much greater distance. So I think Snaefell is around about 76 miles away. So when you're trying to compare 76 miles versus 73.5, it would be pretty tough to actually do this. So the good thing about it is we do have two mountain peaks that are relatively close to, well, same distance apart. So from my observation to Mullaghua, we have 73.5 miles, and to Carn Gurjoil is 73.4. So it's just 0.1 of a mile between the two of them. So as we look at them, direct line of sight, we have 73.4 versus 73.5. So I thought that would be a good place to try and do a measurement with. And that would be to basically decide how much of the mountains we are actually seeing. So who's joined?
Hey, Travis.
Hello, hello, hello. What?
Hello, hello.
So just sorry to interrupt, Ranty. So just to give you a bit of an update, Travis, as you've just joined, what we've got on screen now is Ranty's observation of the Isle of Man between 72 and 77 miles for these peaks. He's got it matched up to Peak Finder just so you can see what he's got. 90% of it should be long gone behind the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective, hijacking, curve calculator estimations of what we should see. So Ranty's just pointing that out for any of those people that have decided that they want to ignore the fact that you can't use whole numbers, that they're putting it inside elevation. You know, those people that still cling on with their fingernails to the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective, hijacking, curve calculator. Well, this takes a big fat giant dump on any assertions that that works or represents our world in any way, shape or form. So I just thought I'd fill you in on what Ranty's doing. You carry on, Ranty.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
So we have in the foreground, we have some wind turbines. In the distance, obviously, we have the Isle of Man. On this image, I have put the lines in, but what I decided to do was enhance this crop again so that you would actually see the mountains a little bit clearer. So this will be on the next image. So here's the two mountain ranges, 73.4 miles to this mountain range, which is here, 73.5 miles, just 0.1 of a mile further to this range here. So by process of using logic and reason, again, I know that if I scale a ruler and I put the top line to 16 to account for 1600 feet, and I put the bottom line at roughly 1411 to match up for the two. So now we have a scale for both mountains, same distance apart, one's 1600 feet, one's 1411. Then I know that the ruler is now scaled correctly. We now have the ruler scaled properly. So then what we need to do is drop it in feet. So that would be 1300 feet, 12, 11, 1000 feet, 900, 800, 700, 600. We're seeing all of this. 500 feet, 400 feet, 300 feet. We're seeing it all. 200 feet, 100 feet. Yeah. Maybe down to what? 50 or 60 feet in that very narrow band of angle down here. So let's say we're seeing down to 100 feet. Let's give you 100 feet. Okay, so this is what the image shows by a process of scaling these two mountains the same distance apart, putting the details in onto a ruler. We can safely say that we're seeing down to about 100 feet. Now, how does that work on the curve calcs? Well, let's have a look. I go to Metabunk's Earth Curve Calculator, and I put in 73.5, which is the distance to the mountains. And then we'll change it onto metric, and we'll do it to 207 meters, because that's the height that I was at. I can prove that by the fact on Nicky Nook, which is here, it gives the elevation as 213 meters. Now, I was approximately 20 feet beneath the top of that mountain. It's evidenced in the video. So I'm going to say 207 meters. So when I put 207 meters in and I switch it back to imperial, it says that the hidden should be 1,153 feet. That's how much should be missing. And with refraction on a bitterly cold day, let me just remind you, it was absolutely freezing up there, 870 feet. So let's have a look again at the image. So this is with refraction. So that would take 870 feet, would place it where my cursor is right now. So let's just scroll out a tad so you can see. Right there, 870 feet. Now, I think we're seeing an awful lot more of that. An awful lot more. And if we just go on the value, which is 1,100 feet, that would be here. So even using their begging the question curve calculator, we can actually see that in reality, when scaled, this mountain versus this mountain, same distances apart, say with a ruler, we can safely say we're seeing down to approximately 100 feet. Now, that is almost a 100% flat earth proof, as opposed to a ball earth proof, even using refraction.
Absolutely superb. Can you, as we did just before the show started, can you go to the image without any editing done to it, and then just scroll your way across it?
Yeah.
And then after, if you can play the video, and then I'll round out with just 1 point.
Okay. So here we have obviously the wind turbines in the front. There are 3 sets of wind turbines that we actually look through in this entire image. That would be Ormond, Walney, and the Walney extension. So we have 3 sets of turbines. None of the blades are actually cresting the waves. For any of you guys that want to try and suggest that they are spooning the water, they are not. And yeah, we are seeing some sensational flat earth proof here. What you do actually get to see at the very end is a very little bit of refraction, just not refraction, mirroring just here, just at the very bottom. That's the only distortion on the entire image. And I'll see if I can get the video up. I think it was 7027, was it? No, 7072. 7282. No. That was this one. So this is the video that I put up yesterday on my channel. And what I'll do in a minute is I'll pan around and I'll show you the Isle of Man. So I'll zoom in from here. And you guys can do all this. You can go to my channel. You can do the same things that I've done. You can take an image of this. You can scale it. You can do your own thing. You can do your workings out, and you'll come to exactly the same conclusions. that it doesn't match up to the Earth curve calculator in any way, shape, or form.
Right, I'll just say hello to our new guests. So, hey, Sleeping Warrior, hey, Arwin.
Yo, yo.
While this is playing out, I want to give a massive amount of kudos to Ranty.
Yeah, I was holding back. I didn't want to join whilst he was mid-flow.
Well, I'm going to make one point. I just want to check if he's finished, then I'm going to make one point, and then I'll hand it over to you, Anthony, if you've got something to add. Is that the end of your presentation, Ranty? I'm
just going to show you my position so that there's no doubt as to the position as well. So there, that little, where those people are, that's the very top. That's 213 meters. I'm in a ditch approximately 20 feet beneath them. And I'll show you that's the ditch that I'm in right now. I should turn around again and show you the top of the mountain. And I don't think there can be any doubt that I'm essentially 20 feet beneath the top, putting my elevation at 207 meters. So all the details are there for anybody to go and scrutinize. Knock yourself out.
Yeah, let me respond. I didn't join midway through because I waited until you finished, because there's nothing worse than someone joining and disrupting your flow when you're mid-flow. It's like the rhythm of the ocean. You don't want that rhythm disturbing. But when I was watching and listening to what you were saying, what dawned on me was that if Miles Delia Davis was correct with his interpretation, then this video would not be possible. That's the key point. This video cannot be possible if Miles is correct. Therefore, the only conclusion that anybody with half a brain, you don't need much of a brain, the only conclusion that you can reasonably come to is that Miles must be wrong in his interpretation.
Hold on, you're hijacking the point. So, no, the conclusion you come to is that the Earth is obviously and observably flat. Miles Davis is a nobody, and nobody gives a crap what he asserts using what I'm about to explain. So, what Ranty's using is these numbers, 1785 feet, and then comparing it in a scale and saying how much is missing from the bottom, say 100 feet. Well, this is nonsense. What gives you those numbers? Well, I'll tell you what gives you those numbers. This mountain in the near foreground, if you were standing next to it, you would look up at it, you'd tip your head back, and you'd widen your angle and you'd see up to it. Whereas this mountain, you wouldn't. You'd look straight out at it. Now, this is being represented on what they say the world is. A side elevation where every mountain's essentially the same size. This mountain here is exactly the same size as this mountain here in this profile. And this, if this is a 1,000-foot mountain, is the same size as this 1,000-foot mountain and this 1,000-foot mountain and this 1,000-foot mountain. It doesn't matter that they're further away from the observer who stood here. Their sizes are the same, right? Well, this 1,000-foot mountain's always 1,000-foot. Doesn't matter how far away, it's always 1,000-foot. No. When we actually look at things that are real in the distance, and Ranty can do this just by making this composite smaller, what you see is it's teeny, 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 tiny in terms of its angular size, its relative size based on its distance. This 1785 feet means nothing when you're looking out with perspective inclusive. That 1785 feet is relative to its size in comparison to this. If this was larger compared to this in feet, then it only makes sense when you look side on because it doesn't include how you view it, i.e. the angle, the perspective. That's how they do their magic trick. So when they say this is a 1785-foot mountain and how much is missing from the bottom, it's meaningless because at the bottom, that's where you've got your most limited angle, right? That's why we're getting these effects. This is a diffraction limit. This tiny little band that's only really near the bottom because Ranty's gone higher. He's opened up his angle to these things in the distance, so they're more visible. If he'd have gone lower, he'd have closed his angle to them as they get closer to the deck, or as he gets closer to the deck, I should say. His angle to these things becomes more limited. So raising up means he's got a clearer angle, and yeah, in terms of how it gets diced out with the maths, when you beg the question and use these misrepresentative figures, 1785 feet, for something that's 75 miles away, it's absolutely bonkers because it excludes perspective. We do not see the side of our own head stood here looking out at mountains that all remain the same size. They decrease their angle as they get further away. So that's what you have to account for, not 1785 feet and how many feet are missing off the bottom of it, because that is a totally exclusive of perspective way of analysing this view. In other words, it's 1785 here. it's 1785 here. But clearly it's not. It's got further away. The angle of view to it's got smaller. So that's the magic trick. That's what they're doing. Whenever you see these numbers, then you know there's no perspective included. It's just representing it in an orthographic way so that they can claim how many feet are missing off the bottom, where we would say, well, that's the most limited angle. That's where you get the most compression, where things squash the most. In the same way as if this mountain range was another 100 miles away, it would be a smaller angle. In this view, with this zoom, it would be smaller, i.e. the angle to it would be smaller. Well, the same exact effect happens as you work your way down anything. The angle of view to this section is much more narrow than the angle of view to this section because it's lower. Simple. And that has the same effect. Stuff becomes more compressed as you work your way down. Red Pill Philosophy did an absolutely excellent expose of this, with a building in the distance, and as you work your way down the floors, you can see the balconies getting more and more squashed. Shock horror. Because as he works his way down the building, the angle becomes more limited, causing basically the same effect. If you push these mountains further away, they're going to get smaller. The angle of view gets narrower because they're further away, right? Obvious. But the same principle applies as you work your way down in angle. That's ignored if you represent it with these numbers. So you can't take that into consideration. You need them if you're going to start translating it into this view, and that's precisely what they do. Sorry, that was quite a long, elongated point, but I really want to hammer this home.
I think what I want to do, I want to invite Ranty to poke the bear here, because this basically, even though Nathan stomped over my point, I'm going to reassert it on top of his point. If Miles's video was what he says it is, this would not be possible. That's the point. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it well aware to everybody that Miles the Liar Davis has not responded to the angular size counter argument because he's buried his head in the sand. But not, what we're going to now do is push it another stage further and say, if Miles's assertion is correct, explain this, because he's not going to be able to. So Miles, if you're listening, and we know that your cronies do listen, so somebody get the message to him, come and tell us how this is possible with your sphere-loving bullshit, because that's what you've got to do. So I look forward to you burying your head in the sand once more and completely ignoring the counter and make another 4 videos claiming that the Earth's a ball, and we just sit here laughing at you. But Miles, explain this.
So you're gonna what's the word? Affirm that? Is that the right word terminology, Ranty?
Affirm it? I can affirm it.
I mean,
I can affirm it, and I can say, well, yeah, I understand what he's trying to say, which is if he's putting his camera height at the same height as something in the foreground, he can perhaps look at things in the distance. He's not taking into account that things shrink. This is a much easier way of actually just measuring things. We have 2 objects the same distance apart, so we have 73.5 and 73.4. We have elevation heights for both, and when you scale it, and then you put a ruler in and you work out how far you're seeing down, essentially you're seeing down to the floor. And this is, in my opinion, a much easier way, and anybody else can repeat this. Take screenshots of my video, do the same thing, apply the same data, same way of doing it, and knock yourself out, because this will come up the same result. There ain't 1,100 feet of curve there.
check out the size of the bulge.
The bulge, let me show you the bulge size. This will be interesting. So from this distance, the bulge itself is 900 feet.
That's at the most limited. So what about the size of the bulge when you're looking at the one that's 77 miles, when you beg the question and exclude perspective by using whole numbers?
So when we go to 77 miles, the bulge is 988 feet, almost 1,000 feet. And I believe it was a little bit further than that. If we went to Peak Finder and we look for the Greba Mountains, which are here, the distance is 77.5. So when I put 77.5, we actually get a bulge of 1,001 feet. 1,001 feet.
Wow.
And Greba Mountains essentially are, where are we? Greba Mountains are 1,385 feet tall, which are here. The curve calcs say that 1,385 should be missing. So essentially we shouldn't see any Greba Mountain, but they're all visible in the video.
So just for the benefit of those who want to beg the question one more time, which mountain should we just not see at all?
Griever Mountains, the ones on the far left.
Let's just stick it up again. The 85 missing, according to how much of their 1,000-foot bulge blocks the view of this mountain. Oh, it just looks the same as the rest of them, just visible.
There's Griever Mountains there. I know it's slightly difficult to work out. Maybe you
can see it clear enough
on the video. You'll see it very well. You'll see it very clear on the video. There they are. And if you look at, you can see that that matches up perfectly down here with Peak Finder. Just there. So they should be gone. None of them are visible. 77.5 miles away. And there should be a 1,000-foot wall of water between us and them. It's a shame for those turbines, Nathan, isn't it?
Yeah, where the bulge should be.
Where the bulge should be, yeah.
The problem that Miles does when he makes his claim that the top of the turbines is equal to the top of the bridge, the problem that he doesn't consider is that they're still heading down towards the horizon. And I know he says that they're on eye level, but everything converges at one point, and he's saying it's right in the middle of the frame. The problem we've got with Miles is that we don't know for certain that he is where he says he is, because he didn't prove it. So he only needs to be a couple of feet either side, and it's going to cause a seesaw effect, because he's going to be basically like making it skewed, maybe unintentionally. But the point is that we can't validate what Miles says, because he didn't prove that he took the pictures where he said he was. And even if he did, it still doesn't explain why there's so much mountain in the background shown. On a sphere, it's got to be behind the curve, and it wasn't behind the curve. But if what Miles was saying is true, then what Ranty's got here is impossible.
So this is the line of sight. So we go through these turbines. We go through 3 sets. So we do have a view of Ormond in the foreground. Then we come to Walney. And then we come to the Walney extension. So there's 3 sets of turbines that we look through when we look through all these mountains. And we're essentially looking way over here from North Brule, which is here, all the way over to Snaefell, etc., all the way over here, 76, 77.5 miles away, all over there. So this is the mountain ranges that we're looking at. And then, as I say, the best. So essentially, when I said that we were going to measure 2 mountain ranges, that would be 73.5 and 73.4 miles away. So essentially, they're on the same track, like so. So they should appear. So when you're trying to work things out and scale them, then that's a very good way of doing it. I wouldn't be able to do the 73.5 versus the 77.5 because there's a 4-mile discrepancy there. And the Globers would argue that that would be not correct to do. Try and get the nearest 2 that you can. So I did find the nearest 2. They're just 0.1 of a mile away. And that's what this result is. This is 0.1 of a mile away between this mountain here and this mountain here. Relevant heights scaled in correctly, so we now have 1600 at the top, 1411 at the bottom. That then scales the ruler. The ruler's now scaled, and all we have to do then is just see where it ends up, and essentially we're under 100 feet.
Relative to the height of the turbines, how high are you?
They're all different sizes, these turbines. Some of them are massive. I think some of them are about the same height as myself. If I go to, let's have a look, see.
210 meters.
I was just about to say that.
What height are you at?
207 meters.
So you're basically the same height as some of them, thereabouts.
Yeah.
I was just totally being silly.
Were you? Well, I think that's correct. Let me go to Walney. So if I click on Walney, and then we go on to the Vestas, which I think are the largest ones. Specifications. So just the rotor diameter is 164 meters. And normally they're a third. So that would be half again. So that would be 240 meters tall to the hub, the massive. Oh, the total height is 220 meters. There we go. The total height is 220 meters or 720 feet. So not far off.
What's the relevance of that being a parallel to I mean, I know what the relevance is for miles. It leaves him a little bit screwed because every single calculation he does with his calculator angles the camera down. So if he's to assert that he's parallel with something in the near foreground that's at the same height as he is, none of his maths is ever going to work because he's not angling his camera down as the maths dictates he must.
So yeah, I'll be going back again today, by the way. I want to go and see whether I can see the lighthouse. So when we're going down on here, we have a lighthouse that should be...
A lighthouse?
That's the one. I'm going to go and see if I can see it. Now, do I expect to see it? Probably not. But it's worth a go, isn't it? It's down to about 150 feet, I would say, above the water.
You're going to need to... where is it you're going from, Ranty?
Where am I driving from? Polson?
No, sorry. Where are you looking from? Where are you heading to?
Nicky Nook.
Where's that? Oh, is that near you?
It takes me about... Well, from here today, it's going to take me about half an hour to get there, 35 minutes. And then I've got to climb the mountain. Well, it's more of a large hill. It's going to take about 20 minutes, 25 minutes to get to the top. How do we spell Machold? Machold.
Maughold.
Machold Lighthouse. There we go.
Why can't you see it on the picture you've already got?
Because it was daytime, and we had a bit of inferior mirage going off. So we know that this is an active lighthouse. So if I go and I'm up there just as it's turning dusk, then hopefully I might be able to see this turn on, and you know, that'll kind of put any of this notion to bed that we live on a ball.
Hey, let me ask you a question, because
Sorry, go ahead, Travis.
Why don't you think I can find those oil rigs on Google Earth?
Because they don't... I don't know. I've always wondered why you can't find a lot of stuff on Google Earth. They seem to not suppress it, but they seem to have no reason to put it on there.
Yeah, but the problem with that is, to a certain extent, if you go on Google Earth where my location was, there is a set of they name the oil rigs with the same letter. So the ones that I have in my videos are all with G: Gilda, Gwen, whatever.
Is it because they're not permanent fixtures and they can move?
No, they're permanent. Yeah, they're permanent. They don't move.
Maybe they don't put them on there because if you know how far away they are from you, then you can work out that they're not behind the curve.
I don't know. That's well. Anyway, but my point was that in one of my latest videos, I panned to the right, and the set of rigs on that one are H rigs, like Henry and Harold and whatever, and they're on Google. I can see them plain as day. But the ones that I'm looking at for the Channel Islands, they don't have them on there. So that's because for me that would be my interpretation of what I'm seeing would be dramatically more interesting than just putting up the footage that I have, because otherwise you don't know how far away these things are.
So if you think that I can see that lighthouse today, what would you think the chances of seeing it? There should be 908 feet hidden, and with refraction 674 feet. So, you know, I mean, I think the top of the lighthouse, its focal point is, what is it, 160 feet, Anthony?
215 focal height up to the bulb.
Right, 215. So
that's from the low. Isn't that from the lowest low tide?
I think that'd be mid tide probably. So with refraction, there should be 674 feet missing. Without refraction, 908 feet. So essentially, there's no way I'm gonna drive all the way there on a wild goose chase and not see this lighthouse. Yeah, that's the position of the ball. That's the position of the globe. You can exclude refraction today. It's absolutely freezing. I think it's around about 3 degrees. So I'd like to see him try and claim any kind of refraction nonsense today.
Hold on. What makes you think you can resolve this lighthouse at this distance?
Because it's flat, Nathan.
No.
You just
That's not what I mean.
You just see
That's not what I mean.
You've got to...
you appreciate that the light is a possibility, but the lighthouse itself is like, in the same way as on Anthony's footage with the lighthouse, you're never going to have you haven't got the resolution to resolve a person, for example, standing on the island. Well, the same principle applies when you double the distance with the same refraction limit. Your aperture's the same size as Anthony's in his P900. So to assume that you can actually resolve that lighthouse at that distance, I don't think you could.
We can give it a try, Nath. And if I see a direct light,
what I'm saying. The light's going to be bigger, right? It's going to essentially give you a greater resolution of something to capture, because it's going to at least spread out a little bit. So that will effectively make the thing you're trying to capture bigger, therefore give you a bigger angle to it, and therefore a likelihood of actually capturing it. But I would assume that at the distance you're looking, the lighthouse is too small to see. In other words, you just can't resolve it in the same way you probably couldn't resolve houses on the in the same way Anthony can resolve houses at 35 miles. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So the point is, like I'm saying, it's probably a wild goose chase, right? But the conditions today are exceptional. The weather, the visibility in the air is very, very, very clear. So I'm not going to get another chance like this, I don't think, until after the next full moon. So I might as well do it. You know, I might as well go and try it at least. You know, if I manage to succeed in seeing it, it's a great win for Flat Earth. If I don't see it, I don't see it as much of a problem.
I think you'll see the light flashing.
I hope I will.
Hey P, hey Warren.
Hello.
Oh yeah. Are you on your best behaviour today, P?
Don't talk to me with that tone in your voice.
Why? Why?
Oh no, that's a no.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, the demonstration by Ranty is pretty much concluded now. So, you know, if anyone comes to that section of the show and watches it, there's not going to be any nonsense from P Mars intersecting it. Well, so that's good news. Thank you again, Ranty.
No worries, no worries.
Let the nonsense commence.
Put some respect in my name.
What?
Show some respect
for
my greatness.
Okay.
You having one of those days where you tell yourself you're great, P? Is that you've woken up, looked in the mirror, and gone, you are ace. You're ace. You are you. Is that what you've done this morning, P?
And people like me.
And people like you. Just remember that, P, while you're looking at yourself in the mirror.
That's a Saturday Night Live sketch. You just rip everyone else and just steal jokes. You steal people's flat earth material.
What's Saturday Night Live?
You're just a common thief.
What's Saturday Night Live? What is Saturday Night Live?
You read that book about how to...
There's your respect, P.
Have you booted him? What is Saturday Night Live?
Nathan, I was having a chat with you know, Gary Heather from FE Core about the convention.
Yes.
We were talking about our perspective has dominated the conversation recently, and basically that it's becoming obvious now that what we've been saying for the last 3, 4, 5 months is now getting through to people on our side, in that, because Bob from Globebusters was basically punting it or preaching it on Globebusters at the weekend, saying that they have hijacked perspective and they've called it curvature. Now, we've said that for ages, but Jaren had an epiphany moment, and I said to Jaren in response, that's the exact reason why Nathan calls it the perspective hijacking proof of nothing, begging the question curvature calculator, or words to that effect. So what I'm going to do is read what Jaren's put. He said, do you not think it's interesting that the curve calculator hidden feet follows the inverse square law? Twice the distance is 4 times hidden. A mile is 8 inches, so 2 miles is times 4, 32. Double again to 4 miles and it's 128 inches. Multiply again, blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah, Ranty spotted that when he was using the lampposts. Shout him out because it's true. And then he gave it a link. And then I said, but it's based... Oh, anyway, I said something. Jaren then said, stolen perspective, calling it curvature. The inverse square law has nothing to do with sphere maths. It works for electric currents or radiation, light, reflection, radar, radio waves. It also works for how far we can see prior to the obstruction or disappearance. But they just claim it's because we live on a sphere. But that's not the reason. The inverse square law works for everything else. But they don't apply it. They don't apply it to perspective. They call it orthographic and all that nonsense. And that's why I responded to him and I said, that's the exact reason why Nathan calls it the perspective hijacking, proof of nothing, begging the question, curvature calculator. Just respond to that, what Jaren said, and just speak to Jaren as though he's here and just tell him what I've just told him, because we've known this for months and months and months, but the penny's dropped with Jaren and he realizes that they are literally hijacking perspective.
Well, can I just say that I'm going to take absolute full 100% of the what would you say? Credit for this? Yeah, because I did it twice on Globebusters. I actually showed them that, and I don't think they understood it when I did it. So I did 2 presentations on theirs on this exact subject.
Yeah,
using an inverse square law, explaining to them how they'd hijack perspective with the compression that was going in it as well as, and yeah, I mean, and I also want to say that I actually used the hijacked perspective about 9 months ago on Nathan's.
Yeah, and that's why I said shout. Ranty spotted that when he was using the lampposts. Shout him out, because it's true, and it is true. What you spotted with the lampposts is the perspective that they call curvature, or it's the curvature that we call perspective. That's what they've done. They've converted perspective into curvature, because basically it needs to match that we live on a ball, but we realize that we're looking at perspective. We're not looking at curvature. If there was curvature, it'd be in addition to this perspective that we observe, but it's not. It's being substituted for it. So the curve has got to be in addition to the perspective that we see. And like Nathan says, it would be bloody obvious on the size that we're on that we live on a ball. It shouldn't be so minute. The minutiae of it comes down to where you put the decimal place, or whether you've got the units right. It shouldn't come down to, you should be able to tell. It should be blatantly obvious that we live on a sphere at the size that they give us it is. And it's not. And the reason is because they're using the perspective maths to explain what we see, but they're calling it curve. And I think they've backwards engineered all this maths based on the fact that of perspective. That's what I think they've done.
They have. That's exactly what I said to them on Globebusters. I said they've back engineered the curve calcs. You could basically call it a compression calculator. This is how I was explaining it to them. Which is essentially is the inverse square law, but you're actually just compressing at the very bottom as well. So you're taking out, it's reducing in width, but obviously it's not compressing in width, it's just compressing in height. So I've explained all this to them. Maybe that's why YouTube still won't monetize me. Go figure.
I think you'll find it was Math Powerland first.
Well, I've never watched any of his stuff.
I'm joking. It's just Math Powerland likes to go on about being first for Right,
I get you.
No, I'm definitely claiming this.
No, you're right. You're right.
I don't claim much, but this is definitely mine.
But to be fair, I called out, or I observed the optical slant first when we're still all grabbing in.
Right, well, while you're trying to steal his thunder, Arwin, I'm going to say yes, you did. But you were shit at getting that across to the audience. So
I know.
Therefore...
I know.
Well,
I got better.
You did.
Let me just read something that Nathan sent to me earlier on today. What he said was, me and Nathan had this chat prior, and basically Nathan said, "Yeah, perspective is ace. This is all because of the Isle of Man. This is not my argument or discovery. It's mine, like yours." He said, "If I had my way, they would not have shown us. If I had it my way, this would not have shown us the trick." And basically, this is the difference between where we beg the question and we get into the argument to try and work out what's going wrong, and where we don't beg the question at all and stamp on their head. Because Nathan likes to stamp on their head, whereas I like to try and work out, well, all right, let's go with that, just for the sake of discussion and see where it takes us.
Please now let me do that. So you brought up Jaren and asked me to sort of elaborate, and I'm going to do it in a segue, which is to say that I listened to his chat with Tim Osman yesterday. And I like to focus, as you rightly point out, on the first bit of my name for the calculator, the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking curve calculator. Well, the begging the question, proof of nothing bit comes by way of assuming your outcome. So it's got a radius value in the curve calculator. They already know it's a sphere, so it can't be used to prove anything. It's already assumed the outcome. So that's the first bit. But in terms of Jaron, his conversation with Tim yesterday, so check it out on Tim Osman's channel. I've just subscribed to his channel because Tim Osman, unlike the rest of these globe heads, is a little bit more honest, but he's just a bit slow and hasn't quite figured out what's going on or hasn't been paying enough attention. That's fair enough. I'm sure there's plenty of people on our side of the argument that haven't quite got it yet, and that's understandable. This isn't simple. But when he was explaining about how the star rotation, which is one of Tim's favourites proof of the globe, actually works, it took me ages to figure out the cracks in that argument, because you're trying to look for an explanation within the begging the question fallacy. So they say it works on a globe, but they have to assume they're on a globe. So what I mean by that is the stars, and this is the best way I've come up with conceptualizing this. This will hopefully get better with time. The stars are always above you. Always. Would everybody agree on the panel?
Yeah.
Yes.
Without exception, they're always above me where I stand. Now, it doesn't matter if I go over there. I've got to put my camera on to do pointing. So it doesn't matter if I go over there. I'm still in the same position. The camera is still going to point up when I capture the stars. So therefore, when you use the star rotation in the southern hemisphere, which is your first clue to the trick, then you've automatically assumed that when you go, I've got to do it again, over there, you've actually gone over there. In other words, they have got to make you automatically beg the question and assume that when you travel to what is called south, that you have gone underneath your own arse. You're now hanging antipode from where you started. You are upside down from yourself. And I know that's not the correct terminology, but it doesn't matter. In layman's terms, you've gone around a sphere. So when you travel from A to B, you've already made the assumption, the begging the question, that you've done that on a sphere. So when you arrive in Australia and see the southern hemisphere rotation of the stars, you've already taken that step to assume that where you came from back in Blighty is now under your ass also. So that is the trick, to make you assume automatically that you're on a sphere. The calculator, to bring this back on track, does it by inserting the radius value. So by having a radius value, you're not proving anything. You're checking out your correlation with your assumption that the Earth is a sphere. Well, that assumption's already been made. There is the outcome you're looking for. You're looking to prove a sphere, but it's already got a sphere. That's how they beg the question. They've automatically assumed it for you. Every outcome from that calculator is a sphere outcome. It always will be. They've got a radius. And when you ask them, the same applies to the conversation. At least Tim was honest enough to say, yeah, it's a presuppositional based belief. It's based on R, the presupposition thereof. So that is how they trick you. So me, yeah, you're right, Anthony. That's why I said that to you. You deserve all credit. I was getting frustrated and tearing my hair out going, no, please don't let them beg the question and work within their confines, because every member of the audience hears the sphere argument because you're already a step into the begging the question fallacy. So just point out that it doesn't prove anything. You've got no proof of R. You know, prove the R and 7/6R, whatever, however you want to attack that particular part of the fallacy. But by allowing you, or not allowing you, by you just soldiering on regardless of what I said, and arguing with these muppets about how the calculator works inside the fallacy, while you're in a perspective view, talking in whole numbers, you've figured out how the trick works. You've seen what they've done to engineer in this curve where one does not exist. And the way they've done it is put you inside elevation and give you whole numbers, exclude angular views. And it is amazing to see that whenever you talk about the stars, it's all about the angles, right? Everything's based on it. When you come down to the ground, oh, it's feet, and how many of those feet are missing from the horizon line, the arbitrary point where the land meets the sky. You know what I mean? It's nonsense. But that's the trick.
Let me just slightly adjust one thing that you said. Tim pushes that the stars work on a globe, right? And you kind of agreed. Well, you didn't agree with him, but you said that, but didn't contrast it with the opposing point. The stars don't work on a globe. And the reason why they don't work on a globe is twofold. One, there is no evidence that shows that two observers in the southern hemisphere, when looking due south at the same time, see the same set of stars, but in a different rotation point. They've got to be the opposite of north, right? How are you going to work out north? Right? It's a rhetorical question. My point is that there is no evidence that a bloke in Argentina, for example, and a bloke in Australia see the same set of stars at the same time, just rotated in a different angle when they look south. And it's really important that, because it's just a foregone conclusion, a foregone assumption, an accepted story that they're already looking south. Well, that piece of information doesn't exist, right? But Tim will tell you that the stars prove globe. No, they don't. Show that they're both south at the same time. Because unless you can do that, I'm going to equally assert that you're looking southeast and he's looking southwest, and that's basically a flat Earth map. Prove that that's wrong, because it's your assertion that we live on a sphere. So you've got to prove that two observers looking south at the same time are actually looking south. But you've got an issue with declination, which you guys
I've got to stop you. I've got to cut you off. I've got to stop this nonsense. You're saying south, and I had to put my camera on to make my point to the audience. So I travel. Stars are above me here in Britain, and I travel. Let's do it one more time. Stick the camera on. So I travel that way, and I arrive in Australia, right? Now you're saying when I look south, well, south is that way. But when you're saying it, you're already a step into the logical fallacy. You're assuming, and working within the confines, that the assumption is okay to say that south is that way. Well, it isn't. That's the logical fallacy.
Yeah. You're right. You're right. And this is the bit where Tim basically needs to be corrected, but he also needs to concede this point. But he'll never concede it, because ballers can never, ever, ever, ever concede a point.
Hello, how you doing? Bobby something, how you doing?
Don't block me.
Bye.
just chat. Whoever you are with that recording, just join again on a different account. You've probably got 1 million, and just say hello.
Don't buy.
Someone who obviously has joined and is a scumbag, and is only doing a voice recording because they've got no other means of joining and interacting with us. And of course, they want to.
Where were we then? Yeah, Tim. So the point that Tim makes, that the stars prove globe, is fallacious in the first place, because as Nathan's just pointed out, for you guys to point south, you're gonna create a tangent line with the horizon, but it's actually through the floor. So how are you going to show that you are actually looking antipode? Because that's what you've got to do, and you can't, because obviously if you're antipode to your point in the north, everywhere is south. Right? All angles will lead to your antipode place around the other side of the ball. Every angle. So which way is south? Where's north? How are you going to work it out? You can't. So this is why that evidence, that missing evidence, is critical to the claim that stars work on a globe. No, stars work on a globe if you're told that they work on a globe and you don't think about it. They don't work on a globe. There's no evidence to show that they do work on a globe. And until that evidence is there, sorry, Tim, you're wrong. You claim it, you push it like a religion, but it's not true, because it's not provable.
And with that, I'm going to say first and foremost a huge, massive, enormous thank you, well, to Ranty and all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. But of course, a massive thank you also to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing the debate. If you hated the show, then smash that dislike button, then smash it again. But if you like the show, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you've not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!